The following video is a submission for BreazeHome 4.0 for the Spring 2018 FIU Senior Project. The student is Richard Roda and the product owner is Dr. Masoud Sadjadi. Hello BreazeHome team member. This is part 2 of a two-part video series that is going to discuss my feature, the Miami-Dade Records API for our BreazeHome project. In the first video, I went over the dataset and how to create the API endpoint by introducing what a model is, a serializer, a filter, a view, and the routes necessary. Now that we have the API structure ready to go, it's now time to import the data. The data is imported through the use of two scripts that I've developed: download MD daily record and feed MD records. Before I go into the scripts, I would like to show you this third file called last download date. What last download date is a one-line file that will show the most recent valid date downloaded to our API. In our example, as you can see, the last valid download we have was of 03/05/2018, which translates to March 5th of 2018. So let's go ahead and first show you the download MD daily record script. And what this will do is that it will access the Miami-Dade API and download the most recent records depending on our last download date. I have written a few functions here so we can write to a log, and we've also now made a second method called download daily record. What this method will do is that you will pass it a date to download and it will go ahead and download that file. It will compile an API query string going to the Miami-Dade developers API, and with the authentication key, which I unfortunately will not show due to security purposes, you will then download the most recent zip file depending on the last download date file. As you can see, we do a try catch, and if we get a response code of 200, we can then write our response to a zip path file in order for us to retrieve the zip file from the Miami-Dade API. The way I structured this function is that it would return true if we have a valid download, or false if we encounter an error, which will then be shown in our logs with an exception. The next function that I created was one called update last download date. Pretty self-explanatory. Once the daily record has been successfully downloaded, we will reflect the most recent valid date into that last download date file that I mentioned earlier. Another function that uses the last download date file is unzip last download. Pretty self-explanatory. It will unzip the file that we have just downloaded. So those are the main functions of this first script. I have designed this script in a way where you can run it from the shell, and this is done because we plan on having this script run automatically every day at a certain time, and we will be utilizing crontab to run this task. I may make a video on crontab a little bit later in the semester if need be. So once we're in the main folder, main function, we will first write to our log that we have began our download, and we will then look at our last download date file and determine the last valid download date that we have acquired. We will then make another variable called dateEnd in order to get the current date at current moment in time. And the reason why we do this is because in our while loop, as you can see, as long as date start is less than dateEnd, this script will continue running until it quote-unquote catches up to the files that are in the Miami-Dade Records API. Like I mentioned earlier, this method will return a Boolean, so if this statement is true, we have a valid download, and we're going to go ahead and notify the developer that the download is complete give him the file date, and then we will unzip this file, and then we will parse the records of that file. As you can see here, the record file does use a .exp extension, so I have concatenated that in order to get the right file name. We then import the exp file, extract it from the zip, into our database with this function called parse records, which we will now see shortly. In the second script, I have called feed MD records. This is where that parse records function is, and what this script will do is that it will parse CSV data given from the Miami-Dade Records FTP API, create the Django model for each county record, and insert that county record into the BreazeHome County Records database. So we first go ahead and make some counters, total records, any new records we have obtained, or any records we have updated. We will then import our model that we created in video 1, and we will also import another module called CSV. This is a built-in Django module in order for us to easily read CSV files. And it also allows us to set our delimiters, which is a really nice feature. For our Miami-Dade dataset, our delimiter is a caret symbol. It is not the traditional comma symbol, so we will have to go ahead and specify our delimiter, which is shown right here. Since we have already created our model and we don't really need our attribute names, we're going to go ahead and skip the header file that's in each of these CSVs. We will now enter a for loop for each line in the record CSV, and we're going to go ahead and create a new county record object, or get it if it's already made, and then fill in the values. So these attributes right here are in the same order as they were described in the file descriptor given to us by Miami-Dade County. So in the CSV file, the first element will be your CFN number, your second element would be your CFN sequence, third would be group ID, and so on and so forth. We're going to go ahead and parse all the records from their appropriate locations into our model. And once that's done, we're going to go ahead and save our record into our database with this function right here, record.save. And we will also update our counters depending on whether it was a new record or an existing record. And that's pretty much it. We have our download script, we have our parse script and import. Everything should be working now, and I want to go ahead and show you a quick demo of the API in action. As you can see, my API is already running. So let's go ahead and open a browser in order to get to our URLs. First, go to our local host. And as you can see on the bottom, the route that we created in video 1 is here. And we now have our own endpoint for county records. Go ahead and click that. As you can see on top, we do have pagination. We're just returning the whole list, so that's why we have a large amount of pages. But as you could see, the view is working. Our serializer is working because all our attributes are being displayed as well as their value. And now we were going to check our filters. The way filters are done is through a query stream. We're going to put a question mark. And for this example, we're going to look up document types. And let's just stick with MOR. So we're going to be conducting a query string that looks only for mortgages. As you can see, the pagination has really reduced in size because we're now narrowing down our query set. And as you can see, the document types of every entry in this query set should be of a mortgage. Let's just go ahead and verify a few of them. And yes, our mortgages are working. Therefore, our filter is working. This is a simple filter, but the way we implemented our filter is that we could make complex queries by using ampersands and ors. So you can do ands and ors on your query string in order to narrow down your filters even more and find the information that you're looking for. I hope you enjoyed this video. We now have a fully working county record API. Further on in the semester, I will refine this API and maybe add a new endpoint for certain document types. For example, an endpoint just for liens, an endpoint just for mortgages, and so on and so forth. Maybe you're inspired and you can use this API in the future to implement one of your own features. I'd like to thank you again for watching. If you come from part 1, I thank you even more. And I hope that you have a great time on your project. Thank you very much. For any questions pertaining to the video, please contact me directly at rickroda@gmail.com. If you have any questions regarding the BreazeHome project, please contact our product owner, Dr. Masoud Sadjadi, at email sajjadi@scs.fiu.edu. Thank you very much.